December 1984, Bhopal, India. A chemical plant sits on the edge of a sleeping city, housing a compound so volatile it requires constant refrigeration. But tonight, the cooling system is silent. Inside tank 610, 42 tons of methyl isocyanate are beginning to warm. The safety systems installed were designed to prevent a runaway reaction, have been deactivated and decommissioned to save on maintenance costs. A routine pipe washing operation begins. Because of a leaking valve and a missing slip blind, water begins to flow where it should never go, directly into the chemical core. The reaction is exothermic and violent. The temperature inside the tank spikes. The pressure gauge needle begins a steady, unstoppable climb toward the red zone. Operators notice the smell of boiled cabbage, which is the first sign of a gas leak. They check the gauges, but the sensors are malfunctioning. They assume it's a minor pressurized leak and continue on like there's no problem. By 11 p.m., the concrete over tank 610 begins to crack. The heat is so intense, the earth above the tank is physically heating to the point of eruption. The vent gas scrubber, designed to neutralize leaks, has been down for repairs for weeks. The final line of defense to prevent catastrophe was just an empty shell of rusted steel. Midnight, the safety valve bursts. A white, ghostly plume of gas erupts into the night sky, reaching a height of 30 meters before the wind catches it. The gas is heavier than air. It doesn't dissipate, it sinks. It begins to crawl across the ground like a predatory fog, moving toward the shantytowns, just outside the gates. The flare tower which could have burned the gas away is dismantled for repair. The system is wide open, vulnerable, and the city is defenseless. Inside the homes of Bhopal, the gas enters through every crack and window. It reacts with the moisture in the human lungs, turning into a searing acid. The locals are all being slowly poisoned by the oxygen they breathe to survive. The alarm siren is turned off after only a few minutes to avoid, quote, panic. In the silence, thousands wake up unable to see, their eyes burning in the dark. Panic erupts across the city. Thousands of panicked locals flood the streets, running into the wind, directly into the thickest part of the cloud. The system failure is quickly turning into a man-made human catastrophe. At the local hospitals, doctors are overwhelmed with people gasping for air. They ask the gas plant for the chemical composition of the gas to try find an antidote. The plant remains radio silent while the catastrophe unfolds. By sunrise, the fog clears to reveal a city transformed into an abandoned ghost town. The once-in-a-lifetime accident has become the permanent definition of industrial neglect that still carries that title today. In the cold light of day, the forensic audit begins. Investigators find that the MIC storage tanks were filled to 70% capacity, a direct violation of safety protocols that mandated a maximum of 50% to allow for gas expansion. The cooling unit, which should have kept the chemical at 0 degrees Celsius, had been drained of its Freon coolant to save a few $100s. The chemical was already at room temperature before the reaction even started. Water, the very element used to clean the pipes, became the catalyst for a nightmare. Without the slip-blind plates installed to block backflow, the system was essentially a giant, interconnected fuse waiting for a spark. The factory's maintenance staff had been cut in half. The experienced engineers were replaced by undertrained operators who didn't understand the chemistry they were managing. The system was hollowed out long before the leak started. The lack of maintenance just accelerated it. The plant's owner, Union Carbide, initially claimed the disaster was an act of sabotage, but the physical evidence told a different story, one of corrosion, neglect, and systemic rot. The legal battle would span decades. A settlement was reached, but for the survivors, the compensation amounted to less than $500 per person. The price of a life had been negotiated away. The plant was never properly cleaned. To this day, thousands of tons of toxic waste remain buried on the site, slowly leaching into the local groundwater. The failure is not a past event, it is a current reality. In the years following Bhopal, the global chemical industry was forced to adopt responsible care protocols. But these standards are only as strong as the people who enforce them. Bhopal remains a ghost city within a city. The rusted towers of the Union Carbide plant stand as a cathedral of industrial negligence, a monument to what happens when profit is prioritized over physics. The sensors failed, the scrubbers failed, the flare tower failed, but the most significant failure was the choice to remain silent when the first smell of boiled cabbage filled the air. Modern industrial plants now use automated shutoff valves and AI-driven predictive maintenance. We have more data than ever, but the human element remains the ultimate variable. Every safety manual in the world today is written in the blood of those who lived and died near the Union Carbide fence line. We learn, but we learn the hard way. The Dragon of Banqiao was water. The Ghost of Bhopal was gas. Different elements, but the same root cause. The erosion of the social contract between industry and humanity. We look at these ruins not to dwell on the tragedy, but to ensure the next generation of engineers understands that their first responsibility isn't to the board of directors, it's to the people living outside the gate. To slash capital expenditure, Union Carbide altered the safety specifications used in America. While US tanks were safely insulated underground, the Bhopal tanks were single-walled and exposed directly to the heavy Indian heat. The shift supervisor ordered the massive pipe washing operation without checking the maintenance logs. The task fell to an untrained local laborer who spoke no English, leaving him unable to read the warning labels on the master valves. Short-staffed and rushing, the maintenance team skipped installing the physical metal slip lines required to isolate the lines. Instead, they relied on a single degraded rubber valve to hold back hundreds of gallons of pressurized water. As Tank 610 breached containment, the regional manager received a frantic radio call. Fearing corporate liability and a blemish on his record, his immediate directive was to wait for an inspection rather than evacuate the city. An atmospheric temperature inversion trapped the escaping gas close to the ground. Moving at a deadly, uniform pace of 5 kilometers per hour, the white cloud systematically blanketed the dense urban settlements outside the gates. To cut down on material expenses, the pipelines were constructed with standard carbon steel instead of stainless steel. The highly corrosive combination of water, iron rust, and chemical residue accelerated the runaway reaction. The toxic gas pipeline was equipped with a backup water curtain system meant to knock the vapor out of the air, but the water pressure from the plant's pumps was so weak that the spray couldn't reach the height of the escaping gas plume. The main control board relied on manual logs because the automated strip chart recorders had run out of ink and paper days prior. Operators were forced to guess the internal temperature, using only their hands on the outside casing. A critical safety valve that should have redirected the surging gas into a secondary dump tank had been welded shut during a previous shift because it kept leaking. The pressure had nowhere to go but out. The plant's management had systematically ignored over a dozen internal safety audits warning of an impending catastrophic leak. On the corporate ledger, safety was treated as a liability, while risk was calculated as an acceptable cost. This has been another system failure breakdown. Please like and subscribe to my channel. Comment below of the next system failure you would like to see. Catch you on the next one.